The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth.
Of Turin, Turambar, Nethan the Mormagil, unluckiest, most cursed man of all. O Balerion, that wide and mournful place, the men there succored under Feligan and brought to mighty deeds, uplifted to a noble race, but crushed in mind and spirit, bowed down at Mouse's gate, in the towers of Morgoth's hate. The Boglir's darkness ran down upon the land, wide and swift of current, brought back from time to time by the deeds of mighty Thurin, by the prowess of the dragon helm and the bow of the closest friend, by the marching of Andanahel with the armies of the cave, by the strong arm of the woodsman and the flashing of the vampire blade. Enough at times to hold at bay the breaking of the darkened waves, but his doom soon washed over him, and he was oft betrayed. By friends sometimes, by others saved, by men who wished him well at first, and elves who brought him back to life. But most often he betrayed himself, and all were brought to strife. The son of might and beauty wrought in the hidden kingdom, thrice went forth into Balerion to make himself a fiefdom. Thrice he gained to dizzying heights and spit in Morgoth's face, but only a mortal man under Morgoth's curse, and thrice his doom did claim him. Twisted but not untrue, the dragon's words rang forth. Thankless fosterling, outlaw, slayer of thy friend, thief of love, usurper of Nagathron, and captain of the dead. His doom played out across Balerion, a song amongst a score, a single tune of woe and sadness in the symphony of discord. The hidden kingdoms all wrapped up in the curse of Morgoth on his head, and much deeper and sadder still in the doom brought back in Valinor, sent forth by Mandos' hand. Weep yet for Turin, Turambar, Glaurung's bane, the Agawain, for while his arm and will were strong, he could not overcome his curse, and all was brought to ruin from the last unto the first.
Welcome to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. I'm Thomas Salerno, and joining me today on the panel are Jeff Haecker. Hello there, Jeff.
Hi, Thomas.
And our minstrel in residence, Patrick Mason. Hello, Pat.
Howdy, Thomas.
And be sure to follow us. You can find The Secrets of Middle-earth in Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or any podcast directory or app. You can find us also on social media. We are at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X at SQPN, and on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And don't forget that you can get your official Secrets of Middle-earth merch, including our awesome t-shirt, at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way for you to support our podcast and to show your love for J.R.R. Tolkien and his wonderful world of Middle-earth. Well, again, it's not such a beautiful day in the neighborhood in Middle-earth because we are talking again about Túrin Turambar Part 3. And the cookies are coming hot out of the oven, I assure you.
Today's episode brought to you by letter D.
Yeah, for Doom. That's right. Right. Yeah, because where we had... Doom. Yes. Yeah.
I was like Part 3 Doom. I was trying to think of something like Tokyo Drift, and I couldn't do that.
Yeah, Tokyo Drift. Breathil Drift, I guess.
Yeah.
But yes, where we last left off, Turin had declared himself master of Doom. But, of course, you know, things only get worse out on from here. But Pat, first, I want to ask you, like, how did you go about writing that poem?
I kind of I got some things in mind about what I wanted to talk about, and then I started to try and find words that closely resembled rhyming, and then I started sort of building it out from there, and I would get through about 4 or 5 lines and then say, okay, what do I want to move to now? And then consider that going forward. So it's funny because when I wrote it in kind of 4 to 6 line stanzas, and then when I copied it onto the notes, it put it all in one long line, and I read it and I was like, oh, it flows way better this way. Not the stanzas. So
yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of back and forth on, man, was that the right word? I don't know.
Very much though in the spirit of J.R.R. Tolkien's works, because if you've ever read any of the books, you know there's a lot of poetry and a lot of songs, which, you know, when you're reading them, it can first be a little bit odd, but I think I was introduced first through the audiobooks, not the current Andy Serkis ones, but the earlier ones. And so I guess when I finally got around to reading it, it wasn't so strange because I already heard all the songs. I already had tunes for all the songs, so it made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
In the Silmarillion, there actually, I can't remember if there are even any proper songs in the Silmarillion. There might be a few stanzas here and there, but nothing substantial, I don't think.
Yeah, no, Christopher kind of left them out. You know, and so much of the Three Tales are supposed to be songs or, you know, poems
in verse, yeah.
But you know, they were unfinished. Like all of them were unfinished, and
right.
So I think Christopher made the editor choice to just do it in all prose. Which, you know, when you go and read, especially Baron and Luthien and all of the lay of Beleriand that's in that, you're like, man, that's kind of sad. Like, I wish we had a rounded end to this so we could have put it in the Silmaril.
The lay of Baron and Luthien, I actually think I prefer it in verse. The verse version is incredible. And I think actually the dialogue is improved by it being in verse. There's just something, I don't know. There's just something about having a musical quality to that story. Even some of the orc dialogue is a lot funnier in verse.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, when I'm reading it out loud, I have to give the orcs that kind of fake Cockney accent, but of course it's in verse, you know. So it's like it's just so strange.
Yeah, I always find it funny, like, because, you know, for Lord of the Rings, it kind of went with a Cockney sort of accent, and for like Warhammer and 40K, they went like with a Rastafarian accent for the orcs.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's very different.
Yeah, and they both work, but they're both very different, like when you hear them.
Huh. Oh my gosh. So yeah, the final part of Turambar, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I guess, what did you guys think of the climax of Doom, I guess? How about it, Jeff?
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's an interesting, there's definitely some cool moments to it, like the fighting with Glaurung and that eventual defeat. That part was great. And then, you know, the vampire sword is also very cool and very interesting. But then you also have the sister romance that happens with Turin and his sister. You know, of course, neither of them know, but it's still, you know, and I mean, you could argue that it's not as bad as the elf dwarf romance, but it's in there. So
I mean, you could argue that.
Yeah. You could argue it, yes. Yeah.
So I mean, but
bingo.
You know, overall, it's yes, right off your bingo cards, everyone. Checks in the mail. But overall, I mean, it is an interesting chapter, and it does kind of I don't remember all the details of what comes in the next chapter or two. I remember, and then, you know, we're getting to the, you know, kind of the big end of it all, and the Silmarillion is in the very near future. So this is kind of a, you know, the tragedy and the doom that kind of ends this section, and then we kind of get into, you know, there's a lot more tragedy, but at least it's not. It's leading to something better. This kind of just Glaurung's defeated, which is important, but that's kind of the best thing that comes out of this chapter. Otherwise, it's just a lot of doom, a lot of bad stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting story, and it's been interesting to talk about for sure. But I don't know if it's one of my favorite chapters of the Silmarillion.
What about you, Pat?
It's very much the third section. It's what if we retell the first or second section and then just amp everything up to 11? Like, the sort of bad stuff that happens, we're just going to amp the doom, and we're going to amp that up as high as we can go here. We're going to borrow from some Greek classics to pull that off. And, for what Turin accomplishes in this, we're going to amp that up too, because, in the first story, he effectively establishes a realm, right? That's outside of Morgoth's control, right? That's a big accomplishment. And in the second go around, he takes Nagathron and he manages to basically control the Vale of Sirion, and give the people of Dorloman an escape, at least the ones that are not. Yeah, so his mom and his sister are able to get away. And that's a large accomplishment too. And in this one, he slays Glaurung, which is huge, right? It's the slaying of the first dragons, one of the terrors that won the day both in the Dagor Bragalath and the Neonathar Nordian, and that destroyed Nagathron. So he manages to accomplish that. So it's very much a we're going to go around the horn again, because the stories of Turin are very cyclical, in part because he's a man. We all tend to run in cyclical natures, both with our dooms and with our goods. And so this is the height, which is the climax in the end.
Yeah, it's also very Norse, right? That kind of cyclical nature of fate, and the repeating doom over and over again. It also just occurred to me as you were saying it, in the history of Middle-earth, Turin is the first ever dragon slayer.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's done it before him. Like, yeah, I don't think in real world legends, there's like a recorded history of okay, this person was the first person to ever slay a dragon. Like you'll hear like, oh, this guy was a dragon slayer, this knight or this hero or whatever, but they never say he was the first.
He was the first slayer of dragons. Yeah,
right.
That is back in the halls of unknown history, in the darkness of pre-recorded time. Whereas like here, it's Turin.
Right.
Turin is the dragon slayer.
And like in the sort of frame narrative of the Silmarillion, it's thanks to the elves that we have all of this prehistory recorded, because they live long enough to see it and roll and write it down.
Yeah, it's funny that they write it down, because literally they just have to remember. Like enough, been around long enough. I just remember, right? Like you talk to Círdan, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember when that happened."
Yeah,
they write it down and give it to Bilbo, and then it's found by a professor, J.R.R. Tolkien, who translates it.
It makes me wonder, why do the elves bother writing anything down when they can just remember it? I assume because there are successive generations of elves who won't remember it. So, I mean, that seems to make sense.
Yeah, probably that. And you're writing it down for other realms, like, and because a lot of the elven realms, they're not, they're probably in some communication, but they're not in like, they don't have a Palantir, I don't think yet. Or do they have Palantirs?
In Tol Eressëa, I think, but not in Middle-earth.
Yeah, right. So they're not like giving a weekly call to give the update. So they're it probably makes sense that they're recording their history that can be passed on to the other realms should anything happen. So
and it always tickled my fancy that it says, I think it's in the It's either in Concerning Hobbits or it's in the appendices, where Tolkien mentions that Bilbo compiled a lot of these stories when he was in Rivendell, and it says that he made use of every source he could find, both living and written, meaning he was going around interviewing people too about this stuff. And it's like, hey, can you tell me about the Nirnaeth Arnoediad? And they get this 1,000-yard stare, and they're just like, no, Bilbo, no.
You just get that JRPG. Times are tough. Sigh. I guess I've exhausted this guy's knowledge. Now on to the next one.
But yeah, so where we kind of pick up here, we mentioned last time that Morwen and her daughter Nienor make their way to Doriath. And it's funny because that was one of the lies of Glaurung, where it's like, oh, your family is still suffering in Doriath and it's all your fault. Like, a little does Turin know they've made their way to Doriath, but the whole ruin of Nargothrond comes to Doriath because Morwen is expecting to find her son there, doesn't find him. When Nargothrond falls, some of the refugees come to Doriath, and it was pretty much an open secret in Nargothrond by that time who Turin was. You know, he had all these other names, but everybody knew who he was. So, like, worst kept secret ever. So Morwen decides, and some people actually say, like, some of the elves say, oh, he's dead. And then others say, no, he's still under the dragon spell. He's just standing there like a stone. So Morwen gets it into her head that she's going to go out and find her son. I mean, like, of course, she's a mom. She wants to protect her son. So it's like, because from Thingol's point of view, he's like, are you nuts? I'm supposed to be taking care of you. And she won't be stopped. So
yeah. It's like yet another one of these that has to leave, and I can't stop from leaving.
Mm-hmm.
You feel this is one of the few times you feel bad for Thingol. You can tell he's really actually trying to do the right thing. Like, he's in line with his wife for once.
Right.
And Morwen leaves even, and I like how they put it, because it's despite Melian's advice. So she can't even be, she can't be persuaded by an elf king who has seen the light of Valinor. Not only that, she can't even be persuaded by effectively an angel. Like she's determined to go try and find her potentially stone statue son. Which I assume, some of the elves who made it back probably saw him on the bridge.
Yeah.
Standing there, and thought that that's what had happened.
Yeah, well, I think it's because, it's just because of the doom that's ensnared Turin. Everyone's being ensnared by it. Even like they can't be talked out of, these mad things, because it's just part of the doom that's happening. That's ensnared Turin. That's really ensnared everyone. Like
everyone of Inhurin's family. Yeah.
Well, I just mean everyone pretty much in the story. Like, they're all like even Thingol. Like, he's not as much in this one, but he was kind of ensnared in it as soon as he was covetous of a Silmaril. Like, that kind of started the downfall of what will happen to him and his realm in the next chapter. So yeah, I think it's just the doom ensnared her, and she was too, like, no one could stop her. Like, nothing could do it. Like, if you locked her up, she would find a way to get out and go do it and go find him anyway. So
yeah.
And Nienor pulls an Eowyn and disguises herself as one of Thingol's soldiers and goes out with them. But about halfway through, it's all discovered. And again, in the Children of Hurin, there's more of this. We actually get dialogue in this section.
Yeah.
Where she's basically like, look, Mom, if you're not going to be stopped, I'm not going to be stopped from doing this. So
I like how it calls them Fae, like they were Fae.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
in action, and they could not be stopped. And this stream runs down from Hurin into his children and from his wife as well, and you get kind of this this I'm going to make the wrong decision strain in the whole family. Like it's because we see, spoiler alert, but Huron's going to make some bad decisions come next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to change a popular phrase, the doom runs downhill.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to think like Olmo is probably just like, what is going on? Like I had set up like this hidden kingdom, to sort of dissuade, and now it's all gone because of this one man. Like where did this come from?
I know what I'll do. He's like, so I'll also use one man to save the other kingdom, Gondolin, from being destroyed. Two can play at that game.
Yeah. Like, all right, I see your cursed bloodline. I'm gonna bless one.
Glaurung seems to know something is up because he's there kind of waiting for them. He's been sitting on his bed of gold this whole time. But he comes out and creates a steam in the river that covers the whole area around his lair and seems to just turn everybody stupid. For a while, like people just, like all of the different elves, their guard of elves sort of just scatter. Morwen disappears, and Nienor is caught in the gaze of Glaurung. I like how they describe it because she's up on a hill. Nienor is, and so Glaurung just rests his body on the hillside so that his head is level with the top of the hill. So when Nienor turns around, his eyeballs are right there.
Yeah. It's like you get to the top of the hill and then like, oh, I'm finally out of that stench and that smog. And then, oh, man, there's a dragon head here.
Yeah. And, in perfect video game fashion, it puts a status effect on her and she can't move and is forced to kind of like with Turin. Except in this case, she has her entire memory not so much wiped because she regains it later. It's more like suppressed, I'd say.
Yeah,
I think it says like she has a shadow of when she recognized Turin, so it's like it's blocked or it's under shadow and it's can't quite make it out.
Yeah, you kind of get the feeling like trying to figure out what Glaurung was going for here because. Like, he way overshoots this, right? If he was just trying to get her to forget who she was, like, he goes all the way down to, you're going to forget how to feed yourself and how to, what language is, and the sun, you're going to forget the sun. Like, you're going to forget everything. I'm like, did you really mean everything? Did you? I mean, is that what you were going for here?
He was probably like, oh, yeah, you're right. He overplays it. He's like, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. He hits Control Alt Delete, I guess. And he's like, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, well.
Close all tasks.
Yeah.
Now it's frozen. Oh, it's frozen. I can't do anything now. Blue screen of death. Oh, come on. I'm just going to go back to my cave or back to my caves.
Right. That's basically what he does. He turns around and goes back to his cave again. And Nienor flees. The elves pursue. Like, finally, some of the elves get their act together. But like it's the whole, she outruns them. She doesn't understand that they're trying to help her and then I think there are orcs, if I remember right. There's an attack by orcs.
Yeah. Cause I'm trying to remember his name, but he's like the captain of the guard.
Oh, Mablung. Yeah.
Mablung finds her and tries to take her back, kind of holding her hand, and she'll follow him.
Mm-hmm.
And finds a couple others, and they're kind of making their way through the wilderness. And then she falls asleep, and they all like, all right, we'll take a rest. And that's when the orcs attack. She wakes up and off into the woods, loses her clothes. Hair blowing in the wind, just like that stupid elf minstrel from the very beginning of the story.
Oh, you're right.
Making fun of Turin. The women from your land, they must run around unclothed like deer. That's
my gosh.
Exactly what happens.
It goes back to that insult in like the first bit of it. You're totally right. I had not thought of that before. And it comes back, or it's almost like the malice of that guy who died is like initially, it comes back around to haunt the guy who killed him, you know? Because she and then she lays herself down on Finduilas's grave, and Turin sees it. So of course, at first he thinks, must be seeing, or he's seeing a specter or something, of Finduilas, and he gets one of his fits again. He goes completely silent and is like, just gobsmacked. But she can't remember anything. All she can do is weep, and he doesn't recognize her because he's never seen her. He's never seen her at all. Right. It was his other sister who perished. So he hasn't seen her at all. So, and he names her Niniel, Tear Maiden.
I mean, that's a Norse name if I've ever heard one.
That's kind of true. Yeah, so like he brings her back to what is that place called? Brandir Stockade that he has in the middle of the forest of Brethil, where the woodmen are living. And there's another premonition that happens as he's leading her back. They pass by this waterfall into that ravine that'll become important later, and Nienor, now Niniel, has this shivering fit that happens, which is and also it says like there's that, like you mentioned, Jeff, that kind of shadow of memory or premonition of the future that happens with her. So again, it's all very Norse, where it's like, this is coming and it can't be stopped. Sorry.
Yeah. And then, we get into Brethil, and then we set up the third love triangle.
Hooray.
There has to be one for each set of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it plays out like all of them do. We've got a broken man, who's lame from birth, if I remember correctly, but he's effectively in charge of the woodsmen, and kind of uses his skill of healing to kind of bring her around a little bit as much as possible, and falls in love with her. And of course, she's in love with Turin, and Turin wants to keep his heart closed off, but can only do it for so long. And eventually they get married, but like it's always this setup of this love triangle that causes all of the problems.
Right. Yeah. The first love triangle effectively causes Turin's exile from Doriath, because it will eventually lead to him inadvertently murdering somebody. The second one leads to the downfall of Norgathrond. Yeah. And now we have, the third one leading to what Glaurung at least calls the worst of Turin's deeds. It's certainly the most unsettling, but as we've said before, neither of them know where things stand. So it's more like, it's funny because like Glaurung calls it the worst of Turin's deeds, but I think also somewhere in the story they call it the worst of Morgoth's deeds, because he's set up this whole scenario anyway through Glaurung.
Yeah, or is like even actively, working into Glaurung to doing all these things.
Yeah. Right, because he speaks with Morgoth's voice. Yeah.
Right. And you get the feel, like, we talked about Morgoth's ring a lot through the course of this review of the Silmarillion, right? This concept that Morgoth pours himself into his creations, and that's part of the reason he's, gone from a very powerful, unbound spirit. Now he's just a crippled black king in his dark kingdom underground. And you get this feeling that he poured a lot into Glaurung. Like the dragons probably had a lot of what he was in him. Especially this is his ability to kind of work through and speak through Glaurung. So you very much get this sort of mouthpiece of Sauron feel from Glaurung. And it wouldn't shock me to consider Morgoth kind of using him to live vicariously, so he doesn't have to come out of his citadel and get stabbed in the foot again.
It's almost like how because there's a lot of Fafnir in Glaurung, Fafnir the dragon from the legend of Sigurd, and in that Fafnir is actually a person who's become a dragon. And in this, you kind of have Morgoth almost becoming Glaurung, or like you said, living vicariously through him. So there's that idea that the dragon is not all that it appears to be. That it's got a human will to it. It's not just, a monster. But Turin reveal. Mm-hmm? What's that, Jeff?
Say it's interesting because this is the most kind of, Smaug is an independent agent, and then the only other dragons we did a whole episode on them, but the others kind of are independent agents as well. In Calagon the Black was probably, I almost imagine he was kind of the remote control, drone that Morgoth was flying around in the last battle. Yeah. But like the Glaurung's kind of the main one that he is speaking through and acting through to accomplish all this doom that he wants to accomplish. You can imagine that after Glaurung dies, he probably lost some of himself, like we were saying, because you pour yourself out into your creations. So he lost some of himself, and like you said, like I was saying, in Calagon, we don't ever hear in Calagon speaking. He's kind of the other main one of this time period that we know of. So
now I've got like a Morgoth in his basement, playing a video game, and then and they killed my dragon, and then Tolkien kicks the door open and the light shines down. Oh no!
Yeah, it would be that, except Morgoth, just screaming obscenities and smashing his controller, Yeah.
Stupid Elendil.
Now I just have this image of Morgoth being like a bratty little kid playing Fortnite or something and getting upset. But yeah, Turin reveals himself to Glaurung by going out and fighting against the orcs again, because the orcs are starting to make inroads into Brethil. So he takes up his vampire sword again and goes out to fight the orcs, but doing so only reveals himself to Glaurung / Morgoth, and so Glaurung starts to plot. He's like, yeah, maybe I should get off my bed of gold and do something. And so, they describe him coming out and being almost like an impending natural disaster that you can see slowly coming at you from far away, because as he moves, he destroys and burns everything around him. And I get the idea that he's very slow moving, because he's almost he must have these stubby legs or something and move just like a serpent or something. And as he's just slowly moving, he's slowly kind of burning and defiling all the land. And from their vantage point, they can see him coming from hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
Like a slow moving volcano.
Right. Yeah. You can see the lava coming at you, or what was it? Remember that disaster movie, Deep Impact, where you could see the comet coming, and every time they'd look up in the sky, you could see the comet. It's kind of like that.
It's a little bigger. Yeah.
Just a little bigger than it was last scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like Majora's Mask, like Zelda. Crashing down slowly, and you're just every day it's a little closer to you.
It's
Yeah, I like how the items that Turin uses become very much kind of like putting on the ring. it draws the eye of Morgoth. Basically, the dragon helm is sort of like the first thing he uses that Morgoth's like, aha, I found you. Like, you've been hidden, but now I know where you are. And then the more, because of what he does with Nagathron, then the sword becomes tied to him. And when he brings it out in Brethel, then it's another, you get this feeling like Glaurung wouldn't have done nothing until the sword comes out and Morgoth is like suddenly focused back here. Like, otherwise he's, trying to get into Doriath or searching for the Hidden Kingdom at this point, because he's trying to find the rest of the Noldor. But suddenly he's got, my petty little thing I've got going with this guy I've got chained up in my tower. Now it's going to get entire focus. Like, it's very much similar to like, I've got this, this small little problem over here. I'm going to use an atom bomb. I'm going to say Glaurung. Wait, what? Why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's like, and at some point during all of this, Niniel conceives, and you're just like, oh, okay. But moving on. But then,
I think one of the important things that's tied to that is she's also driven deep into sorrow right at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
I think it doesn't really go much into it in the Silmarillion, but in the books, like, it talks about it being, most people think, it's because, your husband's now away at battle with the orcs and everything. But there is something, she keeps saying there's something deeper. There's like a shadow from my past that's haunting me now, that's causing this, depression effectively. But she doesn't know what it is. And it keeps coming to her, and it comes to her before, like the first time. One of the reasons she's attracted to Turin in the first place is because she has that shadow that's sort of playing on her.
Yeah, and how like she almost like she's attracted to him because I think deep down, like, she knows he's important to her somehow.
Mm-hmm.
She just doesn't know the exact meaning behind that feeling. Yeah, it's just so it's so sad, like, and I mean that in all seriousness. It is so sad, and you just think like, Morgoth, just leave these people alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop doing this to these people. And of course, like, you have the love triangle, like, deepening into this too, because, like, Brandir had tried to dissuade her from marrying Turin in the first place by saying who he was, and explaining that, look, he's got this doom that's gonna only gonna lead you to unhappiness. Mm-hmm. And of course he couldn't have predicted how, because he didn't know they were related, but he's still saying, like, look, everyone who gets close to this guy dies, but because of the doom, it does, even though she has this shadow of foreboding, it doesn't prevent her from getting together with Turin, and it's just more doom. Pat, do you remember if in the book version, is it just those two guys who go with Turin to slay the dragon, or is there more?
I want to say in the book version it was like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And, because it's sort of weird. You have the initial 3, and then you have these 2 others that decide to go with them. I almost want to say they run into them at, like, the outskirts of town. Like, they weren't part of the big meeting.
Oh, okay.
And or the Turin goes and gets them. Like, he knows where they are, and he knows they'll come with him. And they go off, but then the whole town decides, we're going to go too. Because, I mean, if he fails, we're all dead anyways, right? I think it's
the thing, yeah. But and Brandir tries to dissuade them, and nobody is listening to that guy anymore. Turin, once again, has taken effective control of this realm from the person who actually leads it, And Brandir just decides at this point, look, I'm done, man. I'm done. If you're not going to listen to me, I renounce my responsibility over you people. So
I'm out.
Yeah. Mic drop. He's leaving the stage. I really feel bad for Brandir because, he just doesn't deserve what happens to him throughout this story. And I get that as kind of... What's that, Jeff?
I would say at least right now, Turin doesn't immediately kill him like he did the guy in the last section. That happens later to him, but it doesn't happen right now.
Right, yeah.
Well, and it's funny because he's one of those characters that sort of, he should be more sympathetic than he is. Like, you somehow still end up disliking him throughout both the Silmarillion and the Children of Hurin. And he's just, he just strikes you as a weasel. Yeah,
definitely. All in the Children of Hurin, I definitely picked that up where I was like, you're kind of weaselly, but I still sort of feel sorry for you.
Right. It's like, man, he didn't deserve most of that. He deserved a little bit of it, but not most of it.
Right. It's like, and you feel bad for him because of his, that he's a cripple and that he's probably, and this is like a warrior based society. And so everybody is judging this guy based on, well, he can't fight. So, how is he going to effectively lead this group? And so they all latch on to this new guy who shows up who can fight and lead men in battle.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
Yet another guy who is healed by the person he ends up surpassing. Right.
And betraying. Yeah.
Heals him. And who ends up in the love triangle. It's just, we're just going to do the last section except amp it to 11.
It's
go to 11.
It's like those sequels, which are like the last movie, except just ramped up to it has the same basic plot beats of the previous movie, but it's ramped up to the next level.
Yeah, like the Fast and the Furious we talked about before.
Right.
All 11 of them are that. Whatever the last one was, let's just go bigger. I don't know how we're gonna go. We had a whole fleet of battleships in the last, but we'll go bigger somehow.
Did they end up going to space? Yeah. Did they go to space eventually?
Yeah, they did, but it was
okay.
They weren't on the moon driving around, so that's the next thing
that stinks.
Yeah. They'll get there, don't worry. 12 is just around the corner, I'm sure.
Turin's plan to sort of face the dragon is almost lifted directly out of Sigurd and Fafnir, because Sigurd hides in a pit as Fafnir is going to crawl over him, and then he'll stab upward with his blade, which is precisely what happens in this case, except it's big. Instead of it being a pit in the ground, it's a ravine that Glaurung has to cross. And apparently he's long enough that he can kind of thrust half his body over the ravine and then sort of shimmy his legs to catch up with the rest of his body. And that's when he's vulnerable.
Giant slinky dog lizard. Yeah. I really wish more of the Children of Hurin portion of this had made it into the Silmarillion, because there's not a lot here. Effectively, Turin goes into the ravine, Glaurung goes over, it smells bad, he stabs, there's the ichor and stuff, but it doesn't go into the sort of real visceral detail you get in the Children of Hurin that involves the men talking to each other. One of the three ends up slipping and falling into the river and getting washed down, if I remember correctly, and the other guy, I think he ends up dying when the dragon gets stabbed. So it's there's a lot of sacrifice going on here. It's everybody kind of knows it's a suicide mission, including Turin. But they're all in it for the Brethel and for the other men and for their wives. And what you get here, at least you get everything the dragon says, and I think that's really important because at least all of the dragon's words made it into the Silmarillion, because they are in effect, in some part at least, Morgoth's words, and you don't get to hear Morgoth speak that often. But this is one of those sections of the book where you get to hear him talk a lot, because he talks to Hurin at the beginning, and then he sort of talks through Glaurung.
Yeah, and in this case, the first person he speaks to is now I'm getting mixed up. Does he speak? Turin swoons because of the dragon blood, so it's Niniel that he speaks to first.
Yes, I want to say
because she comes up. Because she has gone for right. Yeah.
She goes to try and find him because the whole town that decided to come out for this is far enough away that they can't see what happens, but they hear the screaming and the death throes of Glaurung. I think they specifically say they hear the scream of Glaurung, and they think that they've lost, right? That they're all going to die now. That's what everybody assumes, including Brandir. And they're all trying to figure out at that point, where do we run? Because we got to run now, because the dragon's going to continue on to Brethil and burn everything to the ground. And so everybody's kind of going this way and that. And Niniel is just like, nope, I'm going to where my husband has fallen. And she gets there and he's down. But I think she sees him and he's breathing still. But that's when Glaurung wakes up and says,
right,
aha.
Yeah. and she had been originally led away by Brandir, because she thinks Brandir is leading her to the spot, and then he's like, oh no, we're running away together, and she's like, get off me, creep, and runs back to where Turin is.
I spilled my yogurt all over myself. Come back. Something like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like high school, middle school.
Right.
Scene from a cafeteria.
But yeah, that's when he's like, the dragon is like, well met, and goes through his whole ridiculous speech and takes the spell of forgetting finally off Nienor. Yeah, he doesn't get last words to Turin, does he?
No, he does.
Oh, he does, of course. Yeah.
Because Nienor goes off then, and then that's when Turin wakes up.
Yes.
I can't remember if he stabs him again. I think he does. He stabs him again.
He has to pull the blade out.
That's right.
Yeah, because the blade got stuck up to the hilt inside of Glaurung. And so that's when he gets hit with the ichor again.
Yeah. It gets all over his hand, burns his hands. And, that's when he tells the dragon, gotcha.
Yeah. But at this point, Nienor has realized who she is, who Turin is, and what they've done. That she's conceived her brother's son or child. We don't know the sex of the child at this point. And, she just falls into this suicidal despair and leaps into the ravine to her death.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Same waterfall, right, that she had shivered in front of before.
Yes, yeah. And they said her body is never found after that, although she shares a grave marker with Turin later. Her body is never found. And then that sort of that I think they call it like the leap of dreadful death or something. That cliffside is named after her.
Yeah, I was just flipping through. I have the book here. His Glaurung's last words are actually to Nienor, not to Turin.
Okay.
And I have the words if we wanted to read them real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It says, Hail Neonor, daughter of Hurin, we meet again before the end, or ere the end. I give thee joy that thou hast found thy brother at last, and now thou shalt know him, a stabber in the dark, treacherous to foes, faithless to friends, and a curse unto his kin, Turin, son of Hurin. But the worst of all his deeds thou shalt feel in thyself. And then it says, and then Glaurung died. So he does speak the last words to Neonor.
Yeah. It is one of the darkest moments in the entire Legendarium. This sort of double suicide that happens. But we won't get to Turin's end until a little bit, because Brandir has seen all this, by the way. He's still creeping out. He's behind a tree somewhere, eavesdropping on all this. And yeah, that's what I guess what you were saying, Pat, is right. He's kind of a weasel, isn't he?
Yeah, you just get this weaselly feeling.
Yeah, he's there kind of taking this all in, and he's like, now I can prove to everybody that Turin was scum and they should appreciate me more. So he goes back and tells everybody, rubs salt in the wound and tells everybody what he heard. But meanwhile, Turin wakes up. So he doesn't try to help Turin at all. He leaves him there for dead. Yeah. Turin wakes up, discovers his hand has been bandaged up, that the dragon is dead, and then goes in search of his wife. Finds that, shows up. The people think he's a ghost because they've just been told he's dead.
Dead, right?
Yeah. And then, but then, no, that other person, I think the wife of one of the guys who went with Turin, he's like, no, he's mad, Brandir. He said you were slain. And they go through this whole back and forth. Again, there's more of it in the Children of Hurin. You get to hear Turin's whole kind of nasty speech to Brandir.
Yeah.
Where he calls him Clubfoot. And in this, it just sounds like he calls him Clubfoot and then kills him. Like, because we go over things kind of quick in this brilliant version.
Yeah.
Take that,
Right, yeah. I'm not going to bandy words with you. I'm just going to hit you with a sword for telling lies.
Yeah.
And it's much more played out in Children of Hurin. You can see the back and forth and sort of the amping up of the anger. Sort of Turin going into its madness.
Yeah, but in the Silmarillion, though, it does say that he calls him Clubfoot, but then Brandir reports everything and is almost taunting him that you were married to your sister and all this evil stuff. So, and I mean, if you know how Turin is, you know what happens to him. Like, why would you
You know how he gets.
Yeah.
You know how he is. Like, just don't say anything and maybe you'll live. But I mean, again, it's all part of the doom that anyone that even random people like Brandir are ensnared by it.
It reminds
can't help himself.
you know those scenes in movies or TV shows sometimes where the bad guy or the vigilante is in the room and he's gonna let the guy go, and then the guy has to have some parting shot, and then the guy turns around and you're just like, oh man, you could have lived if you hadn't said that.
Yeah.
I think there's a scene in season 2 of Daredevil with that where the Punisher does that. This guy has to have a parting shot at the Punisher, and I'm like, dude, you could have lived if you had. He was gonna leave. But anyway, yeah. So but Turin feels kind of the footsteps of doom approaching at this point. He sort of. He doesn't want to believe it, but he knows what's happened to him before. And so he's just kind of runs off. And then Mablung appears out of nowhere.
Out of the shadows of time. Mablung comes upon him.
I'm like, dude, where have you been?
Has appeared.
I've been looking for your mom and your sister. Describe her to me. Uh-oh.
Yeah. And yeah, he basically relates what happened with his sister and where she ended up. And then Turin essentially cracks at this point. Under everything that's happened to him, he just laughs like a madman. And all the elves are just standing there stricken. They're just like, oh, gee, what has happened to this guy? Yeah. And and I think this brings things home to Thingol eventually in the next chapter. He curses Doriath. And curses have real effects in Middle-earth, so especially if the person cursing you is Turin.
Yeah.
He's got that modifier, that curse modifier that deals 2x damage.
Yeah. You plus one on every roll, it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, he's effectively got sort of a mark of Cain on it, right? That Morgoth bestows via the curse upon Hurin that flows out to the children. And so it's sort of like a sevenfold sort of a thing. And, whoever hurts you will be hurt back sevenfold. And so when Turin finally turns and curses Doriath, show's over, boys. Like, it's just you're next, I suppose. You saw what he did to Nagathron.
Right, yeah. And it sort of brings like almost like the words of Glaurung back too, where, he's like, faithless fosterling and all that stuff. He brings doom on the place that fostered him. Every place that harbors this guy ends up being destroyed. But we get, I believe, the first and only words of the vampire sword Gurthang at this point. I shall drink thy blood gladly, or something creepy to that effect.
Yeah, and I want to say he brings up Beleg again.
He does.
Yeah, Jeff, what does it say?
Here.
Yeah.
It says, from the blade rang a cold voice and answered, "Yea, I will drink thy blood gladly, that so I may forget the blood of Beleg, my master, and the blood of Brandir slain unjustly. I will slay thee swiftly."
That's interesting. So the sword actually regrets what happened to Beleg.
And even Brandir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not regrets Brandir, but at least is calling Turin out for what he did.
The unjust action. Yeah.
Right. And I'm still like, the way he does it is always odd to me. He somehow just sort of buries the hilt in the ground. Like the mechanics of how he manages this, because this is like the big two-handed greatsword or something. The mechanics of how he manages to slay himself in this way is just, I can never envision it whenever they describe it in the book. I'm just like, wait, how did you do that?
I mean, he might just push the hilt into the ground enough to fall on it. And if the sword has a will of its own and there's the doom around him, all these things.
He'll find a way.
Together,
yeah.
Death finds a way.
Thanks, Jeff Goldblum.
Dun, 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 dun. No, but
Doom.
Yeah.
And you could tell, almost there, right? Because they got the stream with the dragons jumped over, so he's got either agents reporting back to him or he's there for all this. And I just feel like almost just sitting there mouth agape. What is even going on?
Oh, right, because he almost uses because it's like the rivers and streams of the earth are almost like an extension of Olmo's will and perception.
Right.
So he's got to be seeing all this going on, being like, well, this has all been a huge mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, and because he's been kind of trying to work with the elves to sort of set up something against, Morgoth and the spread of evil. And then in the span of a single man's lifetime, not even a full lifetime, just, Nagathron is thrown down, and two of the other two hidden kingdoms are now in peril. And you can see almost going, man, this ball of wax is unraveling really fast at this point.
Yeah. It's become the point where, like, in the old in the old like 2006 Star Wars Battlefront video game, if you were playing against the computer in Galactic Conquest, you could eventually build enough momentum where you would just steamroll the computer. And that is basically what Morgoth is at this point. He has just built up so much momentum from, taking all these various kingdoms that it's just like this impending steamroller that's just there. There's nothing that can be done. And Olmo, like, it's almost like he half expect, like, he'll send Tuor to Gondolin, but it's almost like he sort of knows, I am sending you there so that at least some people from Gondolin survive.
Right.
If things work out okay, maybe Turgon will listen, but he probably won't. So at least I'll save some people.
If I know anything about the Noldor, he won't.
The thing about the Noldor is they're so good at listening to other people. Doing what they're told.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting here that it does say the sword broke asunder, so it's almost like, which when we did the fan film episode on the Legend of Gorthing, I don't think in that they talked about the sword breaking. I think they were looking for the sword and to use as a weapon, and then the guy, like, if he fell upon the blade too. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting that it's almost the reverse of Narsil. Like, the blade that was broken gets reforged as a sign of hope, and it's almost like this blade that could have been a sign of hope is broken because of everything that its wielder did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And did they bury it with Turin? Did they say? I don't think they mentioned. Okay.
Well, it says the shards of Gorthing were laid beside him.
Okay.
So
yeah. So it's not in that little shrine on an island like in the fan film. So.
Well, I mean, it could be. Depending.
Yeah, it's still
where this was in the topography of the, because the whole thing ends up going underwater. So,
oh no, you're right. I think it becomes Tol Morwen.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it is. Yeah, it actually is a little islet.
Yeah, because Turin is buried by the elves, and this is a part that I don't think we get in either this or the next chapter, but it's in the Children of Hurin. And it's funny because the Children of Hurin adds this to the version that's in the Unfinished Tales. Because I remember reading that first and then reading the Children of Hurin version. I'm like, oh, cool, the Children of Hurin has an alternate ending. And I'm like, oh, it's even more depressing. Where it's like...
No, it's actually in the Silmaril. Like, if you read the next, like...
Oh, okay, where the parents arrive? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll get to that next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
How could we make this even sadder?
Yeah. But, pour one out for Turin Turambar, Master of Doom, by Doom Mastered. Isn't that what he says? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Master of Doom by Doom Mastered.
Yeah. Yeah, don't pour one out. Take a bite of your cookie in his honor.
Right, yeah.
Savor the burning flavor.
It tastes like despair.
It tastes like burning.
It tastes like burning. Good old Ralph.
He did the turn cookie.
It's like that line from Muppet Treasure Island. I think I smell something burning. No, it's like. So we have finally, after 3 parts, gotten to the end of the story of Turin Turambar. I don't think any of us will say it's our favorite part of the Silmarillion, but there's definitely a lot here. There's a lot of interesting themes. It's definitely a fascinating story. It's an engrossing read, you know, whether in any of its expanded versions in the other Legendarium material or here in the Silmarillion. What do you guys think about Turin, his character, his story overall?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the book, but I definitely want to now to get some of that expansion. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, you know, it's the old story of this man, or this, you know, this character that could be the greatest among his people and could lead them to, you know, a glorious future. But, you know, just like Feanor, just like others we've talked about, he chooses to go down the dark path and is ensnared. And I mean, some of it's not necessarily his fault entirely because of the doom that kind of ensnares him the whole time. But, you know, I know we've kind of talked about the free will, and that we might do an episode on that later of like, how free will plays into this. Cause like, could he have been strong enough to break out of the doom, and which would be interesting to talk about. But I think it's probably not in this case, because it was just so powerful that it ensnared everybody around him and led to this. So yeah, I would agree. It's not my favorite chapter, but it is interesting, and yeah, has been, it's been interesting rereading and discussing with y'all. So
yeah, it's, you know, Turin is so human, and he's sort of like on display, full blown, what the terrible things that humans can do and the terrible things that happen to humans, and the problems we face in life, and how sometimes we overcome them and sometimes we don't. And that's, I think, the most compelling thing about Turin. It's the story is very much kind of an anti Forrest Gump story, or an anti Little Big Man, if you've ever read that book, where he's involved in so many different fantastical things, but so much of it goes wrong, unlike in Forrest Gump and Little Big Man. So much of what Turin does and what happens to him goes wrong and plays out poorly. And it is very much this struggle with fate. And it's a very human struggle, right? Like, you know, our call is to be perfect like our Heavenly Father is perfect. But what's the reality? Well, we're all sinners and we all fall from grace. And that's the reason we've got, you know, the sacrament of reconciliation. and we have that after baptism because, you know, we're a bunch of screw ups. And that's, you know, when you get down to it, so is Turin. And I think that's why his story is so compelling. He is, you know, it is also one of those stories, and most good authors have parts in their stories and or their worlds where you get to it and you're like, why on earth did you write this? Like, why did this have to happen to this guy, or at all? Especially the end of Turin's story. But it still seems fitting. And it's one of the saddest tales, but it is, in a lot of ways, the entirety of the Silmarillion is, for the most part, the tale of the elves and how the Noldor really screwed up, you know, at the behest of the best of them. And within that, we have the story of Turin, which is one of the best of men, playing out the same thing on a smaller stage, but still part of the big stage.
And I think the best compliment that can be paid to Turin is that millennia later at the Council of Elrond, when Elrond is saying to Frodo, you should be numbered among the great elf friends of old, Turin's name is on that short list that Elrond names. Hador, Hurin, Turin, and Beren. So if the elves thousands of years later still think that despite everything, Turin was one of the great elf friends of old, because he's a man who's desperately trying to do the right thing. He's just ensnared in this, curse upon his family. But the elves realize that, none of that takes away from the fact that slaying Glaurung was probably one of the great deeds of the First Age. Because imagine if Glaurung had been there at later events. Things could have even gone worse for the Free Peoples. Yeah. So it's like, in spite of everything, the elves still honor Turin's memory. And I think that is the best compliment that can be paid to any human hero in the Legendarium, is that you're on the elves MVP list. But yeah, before we head out, Jeff, you've collected some feedback for us.
So we had one comment on Spotify, so y'all can leave comments there as well if you listen on Spotify. We had Mark say, I love your podcast because I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I love how you talk about Christian ideals. I just watched your episode about fan films, and I would like to see a fan film about Beren and Luthien, and would love to hear how to create a good fan film from your point of view. So, yeah, I think we talked about that would be an interesting one to make, but, of all the tales, I kind of think they probably would never touch that. Like the Tolkien estate might release the rights to some things, but I feel like they would probably not release the rights to that. But yeah, I think what makes a good fan film, at least though, from the couple we watched, is just having fun with it, like in doing, even if it's a low budget limited thing, like I forget what it was called, the Halfurian.
Yeah, Halfurian. Yeah,
shot by some kids in the woods. Like, I think just having fun with it, and
oh yeah, because they were obviously having a blast. So that's that's all that matters.
Yeah, so I think for fan film, I think that's the main thing, and I mean, I think that's the thing with any creative project is have fun with it. So. And then so then we got some good comments on our last episode of Turin. So we had Tammy in reference to Mandos's Meal Minute. She said, that's all I've heard so far, but I've listened to it twice and can almost not breathe for laughing. Bravo, or I mean, doom. And then she also says, you know how some dogs will howl when sirens go by? I'm like that with the doom. And then we had Frau Hack say, coincidentally, I started listening to the latest episode while making cookies. I'm making chocolate chip cookies, but I imagine Turambar cookies as some kind of gingerbread, spicy and brittle, preferably cut out gingerbread men shapes. And then we had Elvir, and these last, Frau Hack and Tammy and this one are also from Discord. We had Elvir say, so much Doom E1 M1 should be playing throughout the whole thing. And I don't know if I don't get that reference, but Pat, you're the music guy, so I don't know if you do, but
nope. I have to look it up. I probably know it. I probably just don't know what it's called, and that's names. All the names, they escape me. That guy who talked to that person during that song.
I think it might be something from the Doom soundtrack. Now that I'm looking at it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, okay. It's the first level. It's the song from the first level of Doom.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And
that's what Turin needed, the BFG. Then all of his problems would have been solved.
Yeah. Put the sword down.
And then not so much a comment, and I didn't copy it here because it was pretty lengthy, but Rob Leonardi, one of SQPN's panelists, shared a cookie recipe on Discord. So if anyone tries that, definitely let us know how it turns out, and let us know if you, by eating those cookies, if you were ensnared in any kind of dooms. Yeah, I think that's all the feedback we have. So yeah, definitely keep the good comments coming.
Nice. Yeah, and please, again, if we love feedback, and so this when this drops, this should be episode 91. That means the 100th total episode of the podcast is swiftly coming up. So if you guys have any ideas for 100 episode special, send them to us, please, whether by email, Discord, all that good stuff.
Because otherwise, we're going to read Balerion and its realm.
Dang the copyright algorithm. We're just going to read this. Dang the torpedoes. Full speed ahead.
Yeah.
We're going to watch the cut of Fellowship of the Ring, where every time Sam takes a step, it cuts into the clip of, this is the furthest I've ever been away from the Shire, and it repeats over and over again, every step. For
17 hours long or something.
So that's it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle-earth and of our Turambar series. But before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our great patrons who make this podcast possible, including Ben H., Andrew S., Sharon Z., Mary H., and Potter M. Their generous donations help us to continue to create The Secrets of Middle-earth and all of our shows here at StarQuest. You can join them at sqpn.com/give. Again, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. What did you think of our Turambar series overall? And did you bake those cookies? Did you enjoy them? Let us know. You can contact us on our Facebook page or on Twitter. You can send an email to middleearth@sqpn.com. You can leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify. And you can visit our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. And join us next time for another adventure in Middle-earth. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Middle-earth.
Thanks, Thomas. It's been fun, a lot of doom, and some delicious cookies.
And Pat Mason, thank you as well.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
And I'm Thomas Salerno, Master of Doom. And thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
Here's another podcast on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets.